Hey, it's the Casual Cube here, and in this video it's going to be a little different because we're going to be kind of reviewing a starter product, the most recent Spellslinger Starter Kit. Now, if you've watched Tolarian Community College, who is probably one of the, if not the highest subscriber YouTuber for Magic the Gathering, if you haven't seen this video on this product, go check it out. But essentially, he just says he goes through it and he opens the cards and everything. It's kind of a good insight into the actual product. But ultimately, his kind of conclusion is that the grade for the product for brand new players was about a C. And in the video, he kind of brought up these rookie decks from another, I think, like Card Kingdom or something. I don't remember, but the rookie decks that he kind of brought into the picture for the video are, I guess, a little bit more consistent. They're decks that are they have play sets of various copies, so they kind of simulate the MTG experience a little bit better by having more consistent decks. So I think that's kind of his main gripe about the product, but I'm kind of taking an approach of how can we improve this product? And I know that's kind of a weird thing since, like, why waste all this time on this kind of product since this is like such a elementary, beginner level product. But I'm actually kind of fascinated by this kind of stuff by, like the new player experience. So I think that, it's kind of important because this is kind of like a form of, like customer retention. If a new player has a good experience playing the game, they're more likely to continue on buying more cards and actually adopting Magic the Gathering as a hobby. But they ultimately need a good experience. So another thing that we need to keep in mind is we need to look at the lens of a brand new player, someone who is kind of like they have no other introduction into Magic the Gathering. This is in like a big box store, like a Target or a Walmart or whatever, and they're just browsing around, maybe for a board game, or I don't know, they just come across it and they see it's a starter deck or a starter kit. So that's the kind of, we have to think back way before when we were brand new and had no idea what Magic the Gathering was. So it's going to be a little bit tough, but I think it's going to be an interesting kind of like insight into this product. So let's look at the ultimate question. Is this a good product for brand new players? And I think it's an alright product. We'll take a look at the actual cards in the deck list, but if you look at the red-white deck, here it is. This is just a little deck list. I'll actually show you the cards, but here's the curve. It's just kind of like, I guess like a mid-range, maybe a little bit of an aggro deck. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit all over the place. A lot of, two copies, not a lot of play sets. And another thing is that kind of the theme of the cards are kind of scattered, so we kind of have like these humans with like dinosaurs and flyers and stuff. So it's kind of like I said, it's just all over the place. We have some like luminous bonds over here, kind of like a removal spell. We have the Sky9 Legionnaire from Guilds of Ravnica. So it's not really Boros per se. It's kind of mixed between like here charging Mosasaur, like a dinosaur in the deck. It's kind of like the theme isn't really there, and I think that's kind of a shame because I think for brand new players having a theme deck is pretty nice. Oh, and also there's this one non-standard legal card if that matters. But I think it'd be nice to have all standard legal cards. I don't know why there's this random one inspiring captain that's from a older set, but yeah, we get one Shivan Dragon, one Sarah's Guardian, one Burning Star's Avatar, so nothing wrong with them at all. It's just, the consistency of the deck, as you can see here, not a lot of, well, there is no play set, except for the Foul Orchards, but a lot of one-ofs, a lot of two-of copies, some three-of copies, so, and I don't know why the mana curve kind of was cropped out, but for the 5 mana slot, there's 4 drops, there's 4 cards, and for 6 drops, there's 5 of them, and for 7 plus, there's 3. So I just kind of, alleviated that by I don't know why it got cropped out, but yeah. So we at least get some, Llanowar Elves. Not a full play set for some reason. I don't know why they just want to throw in 3. I guess they want you to go out and buy the 4th. But it's kind of a shame that again, this deck is not really consistent, just like with the red-white deck. It kind of plays like, I guess maybe like a singleton deck, or even the theme is just kind of all over the place. So that's kind of what I wanted to target this video on, is how can we improve this product so it's an A+ level product, that even the professor, if he was to give a rating for this product, how can we improve it so it's a really great beginner experience. And I'm just kind of a nerd for this kind of stuff. I like like looking back on Hearthstone and how they had such a great free to play model, as well as like having that really great beginner it's easy to pick up but hard to master kind of mentality of the game. So but as far as this right here, like I think the packaging could definitely be improved. First of all, I think the starter kit should be up on top and it should be highlighted. It should be bolded just like the Spellslinger, if not even more, because in this case it's just kind of like we have this random, I guess maybe that's a Gideon, but we have this random dude not really in tune with the decks, I guess. Maybe it could have been like something like Angels versus Dinosaurs, or maybe like a dual deck where you have kind of like a theme or something. I don't know, but I think the packaging could definitely be better. Also, I think the professor he kind of mentioned that as well, that the packaging was kind of lackluster, and I think that's a shame because if you are a brand new player just in a big box store walking about, you really want something to catch your eye. I'm not saying that you need to throw like a foil Galta, but maybe a foil like bulk common or uncommon could catch the eye. I really don't know, but I do like the fact that it does come with 2 spin down dies, and there are some perks of this product, and I do think they got some things right, but there's definitely some room for improvement for not only the packaging but also the decks themselves. So like I said earlier, we gotta kind of like go back to when we never have played Magic. We're literally brand new. In some cases, some people, their friends got them into it, but in this case, I think the target audience is going to be kind of like big box stores where, I don't know if you have done this, but if you ever go to the mall, you just window shop. But if you're in a big box store, you kind of do the same thing where you just walk around and, not really pick up items to buy, even though sometimes I guess a lot of layouts of certain stores are kind of built that way, where you just walk around and some catches your eye and you throw it into your cart or whatever. But in this case, for the big box stores, I've done this before where I was looking for a new board game, and I guess all stores are different, but sometimes like the cards, they might be in their own card section, like close to the store, like to the checkout of the store. Other times they're like next to the board games. So it's kind of like it's just off the shelf. I'm a brand new player. I don't know what this is. I don't know what Magic the Gathering is, but I see starter kit and I'm kind of interested. It's a new game or whatever. And also another thing we got to think about is there's a lot of rural areas. I know we're all kind of stuck in our own little worlds, but we got to think about kind of the rural, like countryside. You have to drive 30 minutes, 40 minutes to a Walmart or whatever. So we got to think about those customers as well. And I think that's kind of another target audience where it's just like I said, they're walking about and all of a sudden they see starter kit and they're like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Maybe they're shopping for Pokemon for one of the younger siblings, and the 13, 14-year-old kid in the family, he sees, oh, this is a starter kit with a dinosaur and an angel on front of the packaging, and they're kind of interested in the game. So, and also last but not least is I don't think MTG Arena newcomers are the target audience for this, just simply because when you have a brand new player into MTG Arena, I think that's the perfect place to be because the learning curve is a lot easier. You have access to so many more cards. You don't really pay a lot of money up front for physical products, so I don't think they're the introductory audience for this product. But I just wanted to mention that because once you have your online audience, then you want to start gearing, or online newcomers, you want to start gearing them to kind of maybe something like a challenge deck. I know they haven't come out with the new challenge decks for the next batch or whatever for maybe Ravnica Allegiance, but you want to start gearing them towards those products because then they're more likely to buy. They've already had experience. So but yeah, I'm just kind of rambling on right now. But so some of the perks of the deck is it's $15 MSRP US dollars, and you get 2 decks and 2 spin downs, which is good. But I would like to see things like counters or even tokens. I think there's no tokens in those 2 decks, but I think that'd be a good introduction to introduce those concepts to the beginner. kind of like the counters as well as the different kind of tokens that can be generated in the game. I think it'd be a good inclusion as well to include some tokens for whatever the cards may be. I've kind of revised the decks later on to have, well, you'll see, but yeah, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But as far as the built-in tutorial, if you actually look at the actual the sheets that come included in the product, they look really nice. They have a great built-in tutorial. There's a lot of visuals, which is, in my opinion, really key if you're trying to build an analog version of like a tutorial for Magic the Gathering. I think that's really key, and I'll show you some slides here in a second. But another thing is like there are a lot of, except for this one random card in the red-white deck, which I showed you for the 4-drop, they're all standard ready cards, and I think that's something that, if you can, I'm not saying that you must, but if you can push people into local game stores, into F&M, it'd be nice to have a good pool of cards that are ready that you can actually use. So yeah, that's another perk of the product, is that there are a lot of standard ready cards. Now here are some of from the Tolarian Community College, his video. Here's some the actual inserts that you can actually see. And in this case, like, you can just see like everything's just really well laid out. There's a lot of visuals. Yeah, of course, there's a lot to take in, but if you just go line by line, step by step, it's digestible. And for a complicated game like Magic the Gathering, I think that's really great that they're including these in the products. Right here it shows kind of like the layout of the game, which again, everything just looks really nice. It's easy on the eyes. You can slowly digest it versus like all text, like some kind of rule books for like board games, for instance. They might have just a ton of text, and it's just like, oh, come on, give me some visuals, But there are a lot of negatives, and now the negatives are going to be kind of geared towards just kind of what I wanted to see if I was a beginner player. For instance, like the decks, they don't have really consistent, they're just not consistent. They have 1 copy or 2 copies or 3 copies, and when they really need to be playing full play sets, 4 copies of a certain card to have that feeling of a consistent Magic the Gathering constructed deck. And also the decks, they're kind of they're all over the place as far as theme or even identity. They're not really aggro. They're kind of mid-range. It's kind of weird how the decks are kind of laid out. And another thing is, if you actually look at the upkeep cards, or the untap and then draw and then main phase cards, those kind of cards right there, they actually neglect the upkeep part, and I think that's kind of a bad habit. Just ready to you're completely neglecting upkeep, which is I think a key part of the game for a certain mechanic of the game, where like things like Treasure Map, where I think you scry, or maybe like Surfer Scanta. There's certain cards where upkeeps are important, so I don't think you should neglect that. I think you should still include that. Just say upkeep, certain cards, they do something on upkeeps. So I don't know. I think it's just a bad habit ready to be formed if you don't include it on the phase cards. And like I said before, I think the professor also mentioned this, is that there does need to be improvement in the packaging. The Planeswalker decks are just so well packaged, and they look really great off the shelf. A beginner can look at it and turn it around, and there's it just looks really nice. It's really well put together. In this case, it's just very lackluster. It doesn't pop off the shelf. It doesn't really catch your eye. The starter deck is kind of like on the very bottom. It's not highlighted. So, and if you want to throw in a bulk foil, uncommon or common, or maybe like a foil like land or something, I don't know. Just get something to really capture the beginner. They're just looking for a board game, for instance. Then all of a sudden, oh, what is this? You kind of want to get that feeling for them, spark that imagination. So now this is kind of a lot to digest, but this is just kind of like how I would make the product an A+ level product. Of course, include a lot more play sets of certain cards, 4 copies. You don't need to, do full play sets of the rares, but if you can do for the commons and uncommons, try and include 4 copies, just so you can promote better, deck building habits, because the beginner, they're probably going to be looking at the decks and they're going to say, how do I build a deck? Well, here you go. It's already pre-built. You include 4 copies of the cards that you really need in your deck. Just kind of give them that template. Another thing is, I think there needs to be, I don't know if there is, but I didn't see it, but if there was a deck builder's like tutorial sheet, if you ever done a pre-release, they include kind of like, oh, this is kind of like what a mana curve looks like. I think that'd be a nice insert as well. As well as, if you want, I know this might be a little bit too much information for the beginner, but introduce them to Standard and even Draft. Get them into the doors of local game stores and FNMs for Friday Night Magic. And of course, we're already seeing this with the Planeswalker decks, but they are incorporating a lot of MTG Arena like tokens or little cards that you get a free deck or a free booster or whatever. I think that's really nice. But really, the ultimate goal is to promote the hobby. You don't want this to be a one-time thing where they just try it. You really want the beginner to really enjoy their brand new player experience, and then say, hey, you know what? I want to invest more into the hobby, and then that's how you get them in the long run. They're a long-term customer. So. But I think in order to capture that imagination, you really need to build a theme around maybe like a guild, or just like I don't know, just make it more exciting, make it a little bit more cohesive as far as the theme. That way, it's not just the red-black deck, it's the Golgari deck, or it's not just the red-white deck, it's the Boros deck, or the dinosaur deck, or the zombie deck. Just have like a theme, so it's not just this general mishmash of cards. That's just my opinion, though, because I think it's more exciting for the brand new player to kind of pick that up. They're already doing this with MTG Arena. Why not do it with the brand new paper, or the introductory starter kit? Make it a little bit more like a dual deck. You don't need to make it exactly like a dual deck. Just make it a little bit more, thematic. So that's just my opinion, though. And another thing is, you don't want to include like a high level or a high value card in the products for obvious reasons. Then just resellers are going to buy them in bulk and then scrap them and then open them up and do what they do. So and also increase the convenience value by throw in some 2 deck boxes. I mean, it's super easy, or some like cardboard counters for anytime you have a +1/+1, or even some tokens for if a card generates tokens, throw in some supplementary tokens in there. But yeah, that's just kind of how I would improve the product to make it an A+ product. And right here, this is from the pre-release. I just wanted to include this because, as you can see here, this is a nice visual. 15 to 18 creatures, 5 to 8 other spells. It shows the mana curve. I also bought the Core Set 2019 Deck Builders Toolkit. So there's the mana curve in there, and in the insert in that. The little booklet also included how to create synergies between cards, and I think that'd be really nice for the brand new starter deck if you had a little bit more of a cohesive feel for the deck, where you're playing more play sets. And you can include something like this where, this is how the deck works. Here's the synergy between the cards. Maybe include like a small insert on that. I don't know. I haven't actually opened the product. I've only seen it on Tulane Community College's video of the inserts. He didn't really open them. He didn't really go into like supreme detail of every nook and cranny of all the inserts, so I don't know what's in it, but I think it would just be really helpful for the beginner to learn how to pilot the deck, learn what the synergies are in the deck. That way it kind of fuels their imagination of how to play the game. And right here, this is from the Planeswalker deck. As you can see, it's a nice kind of like general, I guess, approach to the game. I don't know. I think there's improvements for the Planeswalker deck inserts as well. And as you'll see, I included the raw Planeswalker deck from Guilds of Ravnica, and you can see that it actually kind of improved. And the reason why I say that is because if you look on the back here, it's just a bland advertisement. This one actually introduces you to Magic League, which I think is a great beginner, casual, way to play the game at your local game store. So yeah, props to that. But as you can see here in the raw Planeswalker deck, again, just looking at it, it's kind of a general look on the game, but on the back, it actually includes how Planeswalkers work. So maybe on the back, just on these inserts, you can actually see that, they are improving the product slowly over time as far as the Planeswalker decks. Why not do it for the starter kit? So how I would actually improve it, there's 2 ways. So, we can make it like those rookie decks where there's 4 copies of each. There's play sets. It's more consistent. But if you are going to do that, I think this product was introduced right on release of Guilds of Ravnica. So if you're going to include a bunch of brand new cards, you should delay it by, I don't know, maybe 30 days or 2 months. I don't know, you just have to delay it so that people aren't buying these products for the brand new cards. They have been naturally opening cards for drafts, or opening their brand new booster box, or opening the fat pack bundles, or whatever. And then all of a sudden you can introduce the starter kit if you want to include the more recent pool of cards. Or, as opposed to doing the full playset and the hardcore consistency of being like a constructed deck, maybe do something that's a little bit more thematic. If you want to go with the 2 copies or the 1 copies, I understand why they would do that, because they want people to maybe see a lot more cards, or maybe, they want people to, let's be honest, they want people to go out and buy more cards. If that's the case, then, just make it more fun, make it more thematic introduction into the game, where you're playing with maybe guilds, or dinosaurs versus zombies or something like that. So that's if you don't want to do the play sets, which I understand why they would do that. They want to introduce maybe a larger pool of cards, but at the same time it's kind of like you're not really playing real constructed Magic. You're playing this 1 of 2 of kind of deck, and it's not really real, like a real game of Magic. So but this is how I would improve the decks. I actually went about and kind of nerded out and made some really just their quick decks right here. So this, if we were actually trying to make like a play set deck where we're having a lot of 4 ofs, I would go with Mentor, kind of like a Mentor theme. So in this case, throw in the Goblin Bannerets and start off with the 1-drops and give the beginner a full play set of Shocks and Lightning Strikes. That way, if they do want to get into a standard, they can get into a red deck, like an aggro red deck, or maybe even like this kind of like Boros aggro deck. So yeah, this is just, it's not really, I'm not trying to, make a GP with this kind of deck. It's just a strict, more cohesive deck for the beginner, to actually play a game of constructed Magic. And this right here curves off at the heroic reinforcements. It's not really, there's no Shivan Dragon or anything, so yeah, it's lacking the rares, but at the same time, I think it's, as far as the theme, as far as the mentor ability, it's a little bit better as far as kind of an actual constructed game of Magic. So that's how I would build it if it was more like, if you were trying to go for the consistent play sets. But in this case, I understand why Wizards of the Coast, they don't want to do that. Maybe one deck would be way stronger than the other. Maybe they just want, their brand new customer to buy more cards. I understand that too. Or, they want to introduce a larger pool of cards so that, the brand new player is more excited by having a lot more different kinds of cards. In that case, then let's improve the deck by, including this theme of Boros and maybe even dragons or angels, and I actually included both towards the top ends. So, as you can see here, this is a lot more 1-ofs and 2-ofs. It's not really, designed to be super, consistent, but it's kind of following the same line as the initial starter kit, where there's, 2-ofs and 1-ofs, but, in this case, includes a lot of the same cards like the Sky Knight Legionnaire, Luminous Bond, Citywide Bust, but, we're throwing in more thematic cards like Wojek Bodyguard and Heroic Reinforcements, Hammer Dropper. These are kind of cards that are like, aligned with Boros. And then, towards the top end, we have a little bit more removal. We have some dragons, which I think would really be exciting for the brand new player. They're like, oh, what is this guild? It's the Boros Guild, and all of a sudden they also have dragons. That's super cool. Or, if you want to go with more angels, then there you go. You can have Boros, kind of like the Boros Guild plus angels, or Boros Guild plus, dragons. So that way you can have more of a theme to the deck, as opposed to kind of just being all over the place, where you have like these, zombies and boars, and, kind of like if you actually look at the initial deck list, it's all over the place. There's not really a theme. So in this case, if we're trying to make a more competitive deck, I decided for this one, again, I'm not, the perfect deck builder. I'm just giving an example of how to make the deck a little bit better for an introductory experience for a constructed deck. In this case, we're just going to go with a simple ramp, a black-green ramp deck. We're going to throw in the full play set of Llanowar Elves for the beginner. That way, after that, they have their full play set. If they want to get into standard FNMs, anytime they have a green deck, they have the full, 4 copies of the Llanowar Elves. In this case, I kind of went with a kicker theme. The Untamed Kavus are also going to fill the 5 slot as well. A little bit of removal, because, these decks are going to be going against each other, which I think makes sense, right? So include a little bit more removal. Throw in some Dictionary Guides to help with the mana. Gift of Paradise to help with the ramp a little bit and also gain some life. Some more murders. I didn't want to include multiple copies of Ravenous Chupacabra since that card I think is $1 or so. I actually haven't checked the price, but I remember it being it kind of spiked, I think, from the recent meta. But in this case, throw in a Josu Vess as a rare. Have that kicker theme, that ramp theme. Baloth Gorger, another card that you can kick. Grun the Lonely King. I really like this card because one of my friends got the Dominaria. I think that card was one of their favorites because it's such a powerful card when you look at it. It's like, oh, it attacks by itself. All of a sudden it becomes a 10-10. That's exciting for the beginner. And 2 Palaka Worms, just because they're just massive and you gain 7 life. Just some other things that you can ramp into. I decided to keep the Galta just because it's, spicy. But, you don't need to throw in a $5 card to make these decks really fun. So, but I understand why they would want to do that. But, yeah, just make a little bit more kind of like a consistent constructed deck, that kind of ramp theme. I know there was a lot of 1-ofs and 2-ofs in there as well, but the cohesiveness of the early game ramp is still there as a constructed theme. But in this case, if we were going to, as opposed to having the play set, efficient constructed deck, if we were to decide to make a kind of like against that Boros and Dragons deck, let's do a Golgari and Fungus deck. Let's make something a little bit weird, a little bit different to go against it. So this is the theme deck that I made. The same 3 Llanowar Elves, not a lot of full play sets, 1-ofs, 2-ofs here and there. Throw in that Might of Masses because we're gonna go wide with this deck. Throw in 2 Spore Crown Thalids as a Fungus and Sapperling Lord. Swarm Guild Mage for the Golgari theme. We're going to continue on with the Sapperlings and Fungus up here. Throw in 1 Charnel Troll. It's spicy. It's a little bit different. So, just Slimefoot Stowaway, another card that kind of generates its own tokens. If Wizards of the Coast, if their idea is to include a wide array, a pool of cards for the beginner, then go with something that's a little bit more thematic, like elves and like Golgari elves and Fungus and Sapperlings. Rhizome Lurcher, it's a fungus zombie. Keep that 1 Ravenous Chupacabra in there, but throw in a Poison Tip Archer as well because it flows well with the Sapperling idea as far as green black. So yeah, we're introducing the beginner to so many different concepts, adding tokens, just a lot that can be improved on as far as the theme. Over here I included 1 Bounty of Might and 1 Molder Hulk, just because I thought they were kind of, flowed well with the Golgari theme. That's just, my opinion. But again, these decks, I quickly threw these up just to make something that's a little bit more thematic. So, but yeah, the 3 main friction points that, for me personally, when I was experiencing the game, when I was a brand new beginner was, well, first of all, where do I start? So if you are a brand new player and you're just learning how to play Magic, well, obviously the best place to start right now is MTG Arena, but in my case, I didn't have that, or I think it was like early in closed beta or whatever. But another thing that's kind of fatiguing for the beginners, there's so many different formats and so many different products that it's really nice that if you are going to have a starter kit like this, you kind of slowly introduce them to what Standard is and what Draft is and what Friday Night Magic is, So really just, don't overwhelm them with Commander and Cube and all this other stuff, or Modern or whatever. Just kind of, funnel them in slowly but surely. And as far as where to start, as far as paper, just improve the Planeswalker decks, improve the starter kit, and just make it better than the free welcome decks. I know a lot of people, they like to say, hey, go to your local game store, get the free welcome decks, but honestly, people are willing to pay for convenience. So if you can improve these decks, and even though the raw value, if you were trying to resell the starter deck, even though it might not be $15, each deck might only be worth $5 or whatever, that's still fine because people are willing to pay for convenience as long as it's all packaged up. You get the 2 spin down dies. Maybe you can even throw in some cardboard deck boxes and some cardboard counters, maybe some tokens, and just really make it like a full starter kit. Don't make it like a half done starter kit. Another thing is Magic the Gathering is expensive. Let's be honest here. I was looking at my financial, like how much money I've spent on Magic, and it's a lot, hundreds of dollars so far, and I've been playing the game for like 6 months or so. But really, online, again, MTG Arena is the best way to go. You do free to play kind of style where you're doing the monocolored decks or whatever. I know there's the fifth copy debate right now where once you get a fifth copy, it takes a long time to fill up your vault or whatever. I don't really play MTG Arena, but I have watched videos on it on the economy and everything. But really, you just want to, as far as paper though, you want to sneak the affordability at the start so that yeah, it is $15 for the starter kit. But in the long run, you have this customer who's willing to buy the booster packs, who's willing to go to F&M, spend $5 or $10 at their local game stores. They're willing to spend the money on the play mats and whatnot. You really want to sneak the low cost at the start and then have a long-term customer for however many years they play the game. Another thing that, if just as far as a tip, if you are trying to get into paper Magic, I would check out MTG Goldfish, his $20 casual decks, or Strictly Better Magic's budget builds. He does some nice $30, $40 budget decks. So, and this last point that I want to make is as far as friction points for a brand new player, as far as the new player experience in paper Magic the Gathering. As far as online, it's easy to just concede, and you can that's the game. You can go on to the next one almost immediately. But as far as paper, from what I've noticed playing Magic League and my Friday Night Magics, is that a beginner, they have this fear of losing, and I kind of got over it really quickly. But once you start losing a lot, it is kind of demoralizing. And that's one thing I noticed in my Magic League. It was a 4-week league, and I noticed that in the first 2 weeks, after the third week, and then the fourth week, a lot of the beginner players, they weren't coming back. I don't know if it was whether they were getting stomped or whatever, but as Magic League could also be improved, I think, as far as retention week to week. If you improve maybe like the promo or whatever, we had like a really crappy promo. It was like the Necrotic Wound, which is only applicable to the Golgari kind of Graveyard Matters deck. But if they could have improved that kind of promo and make the beginner player, even though if they're losing and everything, and they get a free promo every 10 games they played, and it's a promo that they actually want or actually want to collect, maybe like you can even do it as like a basic land or something, a foil basic land, something simple that they can collect as opposed to this one Necrotic Wound every week or whatever. But yeah, the fear of losing, going to an FNM, Friday Night Magic. I've seen people, brand new players, who have gone and I don't see them again, unfortunately. So you don't want it to be a one-time thing. You want it to be a great experience at the beginning, and another thing that you can do is to combat the fear of losing is to, I guess, I know I said don't overwhelm the beginner with all these different products like Commander products or whatever, but just keep producing the Commander decks, improve Magic League. I know MTG Game Nights is coming up. Improve the board games, and overall, I think Magic the Gathering, as far as paper, they're going to be in a great position for the new player experience. So yeah, that's just my 3 friction points for the brand new player experience and how I would improve this actual Spellslinger Starter Kit.